and welcome to another streaming of, building out something using the Cratis stack. So, well, as usual, together with Sindre. Say hi, Sindre.
Hi, Sindre.
Of course. So let's dive into it. Let's just do a little bit of a recap from last time. So what we were doing is basically building out. The first thing that we did the last time was build out uh, an event model for the imaginary library software, and we focused on. So for now, basically, we wanted to kind of register authors and be able to kind of have a set of authors, and then be able to register books and link those books to the author. And what we basically did last time was build out this part in code, the backend for that, and only the registering part. Um, what that basically meant is that we ended up with an API like this, API authors register, which we basically can send in the name of the author, and register an author. And the code for that is super simple. So we have a command that represents the actual registration of that author. And then we have something that handles that, a command handler, which is just basically an API, ASP.NET type of controller API, and takes in the register. And we basically then can append events to the event log. And the events are then, represented like this: an author registered event. We have this attribute that we stick onto it to make, Chronicle, Cratis Chronicle, basically be able to register the event types with the backend for Chronicle. What we also put in last time was a constraint, because one of the things that we do support is, since basically what you're doing here is just basically appending to the event log, kind of willy-nilly without any more constructs. So typically, there's been a lot of talk in, the usage of something called an aggregate root. You don't have to do that with Chronicle. You can actually just go and do this, which gives you a lot of freedom, and you're not linked to this construct that everything kind of representing a stream, and yeah, so you can go a little bit easier on it and actually just do an append. But to guarantee integrity of your data, you want to do other things, then that typically would be the role of an aggregate, maybe. And one of the things that you can do is register a constraint like this that says, we want to have a unique constraint from these events on name, because we don't want to be allowing the users to actually go and register the same author twice. Right. So this is a constraint that actually then gets registered on the database level of Chronicle and is maintained there. The next thing we did is create a projection that projects into this object, that takes author and projects into that. And this is actually now placed in the wrong place, because if you look at the structure, we have a sliced architecture type of scenario where you actually take all of these different slices. So when we look at the drawing in Miro, we see registering author. We take every artifact that belongs to that slice and put it in isolation, and they're very cohesive thing. So we don't split this up in any way. It's like everything that belongs to this slice goes in that one place. So that means when we said author the read model, which is the result basically that we want to show as state, that's a different slice, and we're going to have to move that. And another thing that we discussed previously is, there is this concept. So when we do this, if you look at the signature of append, it actually returns a result object. And that result object would contain let's say the constraint was actually violated, it would contain the information about that violation. But since we're using the entire stack of Cratis, we have this application model that is actually doing a lot of things like it's wrapping. If you look at the APIs, for instance, it's automatically giving you a result object with validation results and all, like exceptions if that occurs, and authorization and all these kind of things that actually are on that object. So it would be really nice if we could actually then be part of that transactional thing that this is built around. What we've done since the last time is actually introduce something that we're kind of we're not sure this is the right API yet, but we've added this that enables it to become part of that transaction automatically. And as you can see, this is does not have that result append result coming back. It will actually automatically take the append result and put it on the transaction, the current transaction of this command, and then actually show up here. So what we can do is just to show this is, well, if we go to the workbench, we can actually take a look at what events we already have, and we can see that we have a few authors registered. We can take, let's say, something. That's a nice name. So let's try and actually go and now register this, and we should now get author must be unique. This is something that we didn't get the last time we were streaming, so I think it's good to actually show that this is actually working as intended. So another thing that we glossed over the last time was it kind of happened automatically, but we didn't touch on it, is that we have this handler, we have this HTTP post for registering it, and what you might notice is that all of a sudden we have these TypeScript files sitting beside it. So we are quite serious when we talk about the slices and cohesion. We actually bring the front end into this. So that means from the stuff that you see in the back end, we have a what we call a proxy generator that's part of the application model that will automatically generate these files. And these files are the front-end representation of the same thing. So you don't have to go and do anything about these. And you don't have to go think about fetch or do things like that. In the front end, you can basically go and just instantiate these objects and work with them directly. This gives you a better programmatic approach to it rather than actually having the to work with fetch and untype things, and also not having to create those types yourself. And it's kind of different also from if you look at there's a lot of these Swagger things that generate from Swagger. This is different because it actually follows the structure and it's much more closer to the actual types rather than the Swagger definitions that you would typically get. So with that, I think we had a little bit of a plan to do some front end stuff, right?
Yes.
Yes, yes,
But,
yes.
yes, but yes, so having the TypeScript files together with the C# files may be unconventional to say the least. So we also have the possibility, so you can choose yourself where you want to have these files be generated. So if you have another folder or in your repository for front-end code, you can choose to just put it there instead.
Yeah. So this is the what Sindre just mentioned. This is the configuration for that. You can actually just generate it to anywhere, but it will follow the namespace that. So if you look at the structure here, it's like library authors registration. So one of the things that it does, in addition to uh, the output folder, you can also say how many namespace segments you want it to skip for the file name convention. So that means we're skipping one, And that means it actually will create the folders authors and registration within the target folder, the output path that you specify here. So yeah, that's a very good
And,
point, Syndrome.
and it's based on the namespace and not the folder hierarchy of the C# files.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also not based on the routes or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the output name is also, by the way, based on the method name, right? So you should not do like call this post or anything like that. It will become the name of the method. That's the convention for this.
And another thing or a question or yeah, so now we're using this dynamic consistency boundary style. So, but if we ever wanted to switch over to using aggregates for whatever reason, there wouldn't be anything in your way of doing that, I think.
No, and that's another very good point because this last parameter that we're passing is actually the stream uh, type. And the stream type could be, so let's imagine that you actually had an author aggregate root like this. You could then basically, since the name of the aggregate here is basically would be the same going in here. So that means it would be paired up with that stream, if you know. So that's definitely an option. So for the future, if you see the need for an aggregate root, you can definitely go and do that. Very good point. Okay, now I think we can, well, hammer away some front-end code, right?
Yes,
So,
exciting.
but I said something. I wanted to actually move this before we do so because this does not belong to this slice. So I want to actually go and create the next slice, and we that's going to be the listing. So we're going to have something that lists out the authors, and that's where we're going to use the read model. So I think we create a folder called listing, and we just basically want to extract these files to different files, and we could actually go and do this. And we would do fixed namespace like this. Yes. Yeah, that would be correct. Right. So now we can go back and actually take a look at making the front end for this. So what we would typically start with is maybe a landing page for authors. So we would have a authors TSX, and we would go and export a authors component like this, yeah, whatever, uh, right now. So hello, like so. And in our app, we have, well, we should actually do a route for that. So like so. And we have a menu item for this that we call label. Let's do a label of authors. And we can do the URL, which will be this, and something like that, maybe. We go back here, and we should now have authors. Boom, bam. Okay, so we have the landing page in place. And what we want to then do is have a basically like well, in this place, we want to have a menu bar where we actually go and, well, click for adding, and we pop up a dialog. And I'm going to actually cheat a little bit because we don't need to watch me type all of this stuff. So I'm going to go and copy paste a little bit of stuff.
from
if I,
ChatGPT.
of course, as we do. So that'll be the next level going into this. And I'm going to do a couple of things before we do this. So what we have now is the assumption that there's going to be an add author dialog, and I'm going to add that, and we'll go back and revisit this and talk a little bit about what's going on here. So let's add a file, add author, tsx, and again, I'm gonna go and cheat so we don't have to watch me type all of this. So now I think the front end will be happy, maybe, or maybe not. Hmm. Or does it need to? This happens every now and then, which I don't quite get. But for some strange reason, it wants a package JSON in this place. So there we go. Add author. Yes. 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 Okay. So what we now have, let me walk through what we actually are doing here. So this is using, so Cratis, the application model, has a front end, bunch of front end stuff to it as well. So one of the things that it brings into the picture is something called a dialogue and a dialogue context. And the purpose of this is actually to support MVVM. So what we have built is basically support for model view model for React, meaning that we can have a separation between the view and the actual logic behind it, and be able to bind these things. And this is good for, well, it's good to separate concerns, right? So view and logic is tends to be two completely different things. It also increases testability because it's easier to now test the view model on its own because it's pure TypeScript, or basically, and it's also gives you flexibility because you could also see the let's say you have the view model and logic in one place, you could start reusing it for different views. Let's say you're doing something like React Native, where you're doing an iOS and a web version, but you want to have different views, but maintain the same logic, right? So you can actually then have one view model and multiple views for that. So it brings with it a lot of different niceties to it and structure, and also makes it focused. So with this component, we're going to actually start using that. But I want to show you the hookup here before we do that. So with the Cratis dialog stuff, we define it here. And one of the things that we do is we pull out, there is a context associated with basically these messages that represents how to create the dialogue. So you can see it as a message hub that you can publish messages to. And when it gets that message, it will actually open this dialogue. And from that, you can get so basically we're saying that there is a request and there is a response. So that means we can pass stuff into it, and we can also get kind of return a response for it being used. So from that, we can get a context, and what we're just basically interested in this is the resolver, the thing that resolves the dialogue, basically closes the dialogue. You don't have to think about actually doing the closing or hiding of it because there is a wrapper that does that for you. And within this, this particular project is using Prime React, so we're just basically using the Prime React dialogue and all its components to set this up. So with that, in the authors, the composition, basically, what we do is bring in the dialogue, and we say we are using this dialogue request from this, and we give it the actual type here as well. and we get a wrapper back, a component wrapper that we can use down here. And within the wrapper, we actually add the actual component. And this is the mechanics for just basically showing the dialog. So what we now want to do is on the authors, we want to create a view model. So we go and do a authors view model. It's a regular TypeScript file, and it is a class like this, and it can have things injected to it, and we actually are going to do this. We're using syringe for this, and we have a constructor, and the thing that we are going to uh, inject is the dialogues, it's called, which is the I dialogues. It's screwed up the
Very,
import.
very E-sharp C.
Yes, it's very C sharp C and in the TypeScript C. So what we can do is, let's say we want to do an async add author. AI almost got it right, or not really. So what we can then do is just do this instead. And this is an async thing. So what this will actually do is if we were to specify the add author request and the add author response here, we would then see that it returns the I promise with the add author response. So if we were interested in the response, we could actually go here and see that and perform something depending on the response. So with that, I am curious if this at all works. Maybe it doesn't. The icon prop on a DOM element. If you intentionally do. What did I do to deserve this? Way. Hmm. Now that's icon props. Hmm. Did I put something in? Did you see something?
No. The only icon referred here is the icon in the items in my menu item group.
Yeah.
Probably not. That.
No. So is it it's coming quite early, right? So let's just figure out which one it is that's complaining about. So let's see. It's it wasn't that. So could it be this then? Yeah. So it's definitely complaining about something related to this. Okay. Not sure why, but because it kind of works, right? So okay, let's just ignore that. I see why the thing didn't actually do it. So once we have this in place, uh, I'm skipping. So let me show you. To be able to use this view model, we need to actually do this component a little bit different. And we have something called a with view model, where we can then specify which view model. It's the author's view model. And we can then take that in as such, which will then give us the view model that we can now work with. So view model is now something that we can call, and we can do, actually, we don't need to do that. like that. That should now give us the dialog. So in this dialog, one of the things that we can now actually also do, so if we go to the add author dialog, remember we had that generated thing, register TS. What it has is actually a hook. So we can go and call get this and use this if we want to. So what we can do is we can go and do like register author, and we can do register and then use. And use returns actually, it's a tuple of different things. So the actual command, like this, and more. Register author is something that we can now call. So if we look at what it actually returns, it returns the actual command. And the command on itself has if I could only type, it has something called execute. So that means we can for instance, when the button add happens, we can go and add this. So what we could do is, handle add like so. And it is actually now setting the name on the command and then executing it. And then basically doing it right, actually resolving the dialogue because now we're done. So with that, we can go and just basically do this, handle add. And we should be able to go and do just that, right? So test. And if we look at, where we go, network, there it is. We should see the command going in here. Register, post, OK, and preview. No errors, no nothing, right? And if we go to the workbench and refresh this, we should now see the event coming in here. So that's basically adding the front end to this. Not too much work. And we have also showed a little bit how the view model separation happens and how this flow can help you. Of course, you don't need to do MVVM. We are showing you the capabilities, basically.
But wouldn't the executing of the command and populating it with the information, wouldn't that typically be in the view model?
Yeah, but we don't have a view model for the add author at this
Oh
point.
yeah.
So, but you're absolutely right. I would normally actually have that. So we can go and do that, add author, TS. And what we can then do is also show another capability.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't reuse the author's view model for that.
No, absolutely not. So they're one-to-one with what they're actually being used for. So you wouldn't be reusing view models between different concepts, right?
No.
So we would then have this, and what we can then do on the constructor, which is also kind of nice, is that you can take a dependency to the command directly. So instead of what we did with the hook, we could go and do a register author and just do register like this. Not that register, but this register. And we could then basically go and do, yeah, that works. So let me do like this. And we could then go and do the same thing here with a view model and add author view model and your view model here. and a parenthesis there helps. And instead of handle add, and we can take out this, we will need to import this, of course. And we can now go and do not underscore, but this, and the name, which is the name. Of course, we didn't need to do something like this. So that's the other approach. And what's nice about this is now you can easily go and create tests for, yeah, what should happen when we do register. Yeah, we should call that command on all these kind of things.
Hmm.
And it's good practice to do private as well for these dependencies. So we can, of course, verify that that actually works. So test two, yes, it calls the API, but now it doesn't close this. And that's probably important. We then need to do, and I forget, we can take a dependency to the dialog context, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, actually, you need to look in the documentation. That's good. Let's look at our own documentation for this, because we should be able to take a dependency the to the dialog somehow. I forgot all about this. So let me see. Props. Okay. I completely forgot about this. So let's not spend too much time on that. It is possible to, of course, go and close the dialogue on this as well. But I think we have basically what we need. But in keeping with something that works, let's just skip the view model for now. And for the add author, I think we proved the point, and we can actually take this out. I'll test three. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Should we now create a query that gives us the data that we created? So if we look into the database, what we have actually done is, of course, create all these things that we're actually, they end up becoming these read models or documents in a collection. So the way that works, just to revisit that a little bit, is this projection that basically says from author register, we have this auto mapping feature. So if properties on this matches, like the name property here, will match with this, it will automatically set that property in the projection. It will also automatically use the ID. If we go back to the registration part, the ID we're using here is the new GUID here. When we append the event, we append it to a certain event source ID, and that ID is also going to be the ID being used here, basically. So that means we have, let's see, I just need to actually take this out. Sorry. No. Whoa, 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 whoa. There we go. And we will now need to kind of show this. How do we show the data? So again, if we take a little bit of so the way we did it in the registration, when we actually are well, we're making an API, we are going to create another one of these APIs, but now inside the listing. So what we do is well, actually what we want to do, keeping this cohesive, I want to go and delete this and keep everything in one file. So to expose a query, we do the same thing. We create a, well, let's call it author queries, right? And we basically then go and do a controller base, and we make this a route. And we can do authors like this, and then we can go and do specific things like, let's say we want to uh, list all the authors. We can then do uh, a Mongo collection for author, like so. And we can then go and do collection and then find like this. Yeah, maybe I will find async even. So await, we have a result, and we can do this. And then we stick a HTTP GET on it, and that will be our default GET for this API. So we might want to restart this and let it build. And what it does is now create the necessary proxy objects for the front end as well. So we'll now end up having a TypeScript file with the author and something that represents the query, very similar to the commands with these hooks and also ability to inject them into a view model. And we're basically set to go for this now. So if we go to our Swagger first, we should see if this now just basically works. Yes, and we get data. And similar to what we have with command result, we also have something in the Cratis application model called a query result. And query result gives you a little bit of a wrapper to, well, first of all, we do have validation. It can be not authorized and all these the same things that you get with the command result. But also, of course, more importantly, we get the data part. We also have support for a cross-cutting mechanism for doing paging. So you can basically just pass it a page number as query parameters, and it will automatically resolve that properly for you. So that is kind of that part. Should we stick a front end for this as well, Sindre?
Yes,
Yes,
let's do it.
you can do it. You love the front end work, don't you?
Uh, I'm not, yeah, I haven't spent much time on it.
Oh,
So,
that's completely fair. So what we can then do is maybe we want to call it author listing as a component. So we can then do a author listing like this and return something, just a fragment for now. So in the author's composition, what we can then do is just have the author listing. And actually, I actually want to call it listing. I just want to call it listing. There's no point in actually prefixing it. We are within the authors. We know that this is the listing for that. So let's just see that there is something. Hello. There should now be a hello. And we can then go and start using the query. So let's say we want to have get all. Actually, it was right the first time. What we can then do is just import this, and we should now have the get all result basically. So that means if we were to do, oh, we can do the simplest thing that could possibly work, which is just print out the result and the data. So if we look here, we will now see that we have authors coming out, right? And we want to, of course, display that in a little bit, well, a better way. And what we can then do is use a data table. So we can do, instead of this, we can do a data, I think it's called data table, yeah, in Prime React, like this. And let me just cheat a little bit on my second screen here. Uh, I can't remember the exact syntax for this. So basically, what you can do, so you do the rows. Uh, that is the get all result. What's going on here? Not length. What? No, it's actually you were right, Cinda. Down here, of course. But we need to have columns to actually display this whole thing. So that's where we need, I think there is this thing called a column. So if you were to do that, I think we will
Have an
no,
exception.
we will have an exception.
Don't you have a Copilot?
Yes, I do. So uh, add columns for, so oh, I thought that was exactly what I did. But hmm. Let me see how I would do this. It's actually no. Yeah. Should be correct. So why is it, does it,
Hmm.
correction children is an area said. So we probably need something that represents the key for this, right? So if we look at, well, the right place, uh, which would be all the way over here. We go to Prime React and we look at the data table and we'll look at, yeah, So what are we doing wrong?
Have you read the error message?
Who reads error messages? So objects are not valid as a React child. Object with keys, blah blah. If you meant to,
Oh, I recognize the object with keys byte string version. Doesn't that seem like a GUID? How we represent GUIDs?
yeah. You're absolutely. Thank you, thank you. That is
Always
that's a very good point. Because if we look at it, we one of the things that we do is, of course, the author TS. We do render, well, generate something. It's not a string. It's an actual GUID, and a GUID is something that comes from the Cratis fundamentals. And as Indra pointed out, it's actual bytes, but you can quite easily convert it to a string or a JSON or whatever you want to. But that would mean for if we were to use it here, we would need to have like a custom rendering thing, which you can actually do. So you can do what's it called? The
render
well,
something. Just use IntelliSense.
yeah, that's a good point.
Serialize
On
rend.
cell, on render, on something, on hmm, no
Hmm.
body. That's it.
Who
Uh,
cares about E anyway?
Exactly. So, but if we, yeah, you would basically do that. So we don't want to show the ID anyways. But so this is actually what it takes. So if we remove well, the mess we were in, what we actually end up actually doing is it's not a lot of work. We have the author, and we basically have the author, we have the projection, we have the query. From this, we get generated code, and we have a listing, and we then use this listing in this view. So that's pretty much it. That's end to end altogether of registering and doing all that. So, Sindra,
Hello.
we have about T minus 10, 13 minutes.
Oh,
What do
yeah.
we want to do? What do we want to
Oh,
spend our.
we have an issue though. If someone is adding an author and you are on the listing page, you are looking at authors, and someone else adds an author, what would happen?
Yes, thank you. That's the best segue ever. Thank you, my
So
good man.
since we have something really cool called eventual consistency, and not cool, it's really scary. It's actually very, very scary. Or many
Yeah,
developers are scared of eventual consistency, but
yeah,
we
and
love
I
it.
we love it. But I can show you the problem, as Sindre is pointing out there. So the problem is, I will now go and register test 4. That doesn't show up until I actually refresh this page. We want that to show up automatically. So what we have is a neat little thing. So let's say we go and instead of doing all of this, we just basically do a subject of I enumerable of author.
Hmm.
So observe all.
And subject might also be unfamiliar to people who are used to .NET and C Sharp.
Absolutely. So I will explain it. So there is something called reactive extensions, and you can go. Let me find the browser. So reactive extensions. So anything. So reactivex.io. Reactive extensions is a thing that exists for multiple different languages. So you have it in .NET, you have it in JavaScript, Java, and all these kind of things. And the entire point is to be reactive, meaning you can push things to it and you can have subscribers. So you can have things that are producing data and into these observables, and these observables can be subscribed to by other things. And the neat thing that we're doing is we're using that construct to convey to the application model, the Cratis application model, that this should be treated differently than a regular HTTP GET. Um, it will automatically support switching to WebSockets. So that means we can actually now get the changes when they happen. And the way we do that is very simple. We have this extension method for the collection where you can actually just go and do observe like this.
And that is an extension that we are providing on the Mongo collection.
Yeah,
iMongo collection data type.
yes, exactly. So this is from, as you can see here, from the Cratis. Um, so it's a Mongo collection extension, and it comes from the Cratis application model. With this, we can now observe this endpoint instead. So the code doesn't change much in the front end. We can actually, let me just do this, and I can say observe all result. Same type of API, but it's slightly different. So what we have in getAll, it implements something called query for, while in observable, it implements an observable query. And this automatically switches to WebSockets, and you can now just do observe all result and data like this. And that's the only change we need. As you can see now, it switches to WebSockets. So if we were to see here, we will see the data coming out as WebSockets instead. So when I go and do now a test 5, it just shows up. And that's pretty
Yeah.
cool without
Yes.
almost no change to the code. Very, very simple.
Yeah. Okay, so challenge time. We have 7 minutes. Do you
Yes.
think we can implement paging in 5 minutes?
Uh, okay. Uh, yes, I think we can. Let's go back to the front end. The data table does support paging. So what this is also a what's it called? A tuple that returns a bunch of different things. One of them is a set page. So set page is a method that we can call to set the page, basically. So what we can then do is we can use it. If we look at the user, there's something called use with paging. So we can go in and do use with paging. And it will run require us to say, so it takes a page size and optional sorting options if we want to do sorting. But we don't want to do sorting right now. So page size will be, let's say, 5. That means we should now see less data, only these 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we need paging in this place. So let's see. There is a total records that will actually show the, let's see, so the observable all result dot, what's it called, paging, and then total items. Then we need to enable Let me see. Du, 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 du. It needs to be paginator. And don't we get a paging mechanism here then? And it's gonna be complaining about something. I guess first will be the stage, I guess, so result. Uh, so observable, observe all result dot paging like so. Hmm, what am I missing?
Mm,
Rows, yeah. So that's where we do the rows and the
five.
uh, like so. Where did we do the? Hang on. Yeah, so let's just do five. There we go. So this, hmm, still not showing that there's actually more. Okay, let me just fudge this a little bit in the interest of time. I will just add a button because I don't know this component by heart. So let's do, this is typically what you would do. So it has this on page thing, and you would typically go and do like uh, an event, and you do like set page, e page kind of thing. That's what you would normally do with this component, but I can't get it to uh, show this properly. So we're going to just fudge it, and didn't do what I was hoping. Yeah, because something is, of course, we need to uh, the paging as state because it's going to be, yeah, doing this again. So it's going to be uh, page set page equals React use state like this. Uh, no, no, no. Okay, I'm messing around here completely. Uh, time pressure. That's probably what's getting to me here. I'm pretty sure if we comment out this stuff, it might actually work for what I was trying to do. Yeah, that's it. So I just messed up with the component. And basically, this is now paging. And I didn't do anything to the code. I didn't change anything in the backend. And we just basically have paging up and running with this. So just mind you, I'm not too familiar with the database table component, and that's why it's got messed up. But if it properly hooked up, it will be this easy. So challenge was accepted, and we made it within, we actually have 30 seconds to spare. How awesome
Nice.
is that? So yeah, I think we got through. We have this vertical slice, and we have this vertical slice, sort of. I will probably spend a few more minutes to just clean it up and make it work with the paging and everything uh, on that component. But I guess that's kind of it for today. So thank you anyone who's been watching and anyone who's watching the stream recording after this. And I guess we're not going to be here next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, I believe. if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool,
Or
cool.
that's the
That's the plan. Anyway, yes. So thank you and have a good one. Hope you enjoyed it.
yeah.